Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special meeting and work session of the East Rockaway Board of Education. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:07 PM on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. At this time, can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item is old business. Mr. Di Tomaso?
Old business.
No old business. Okay. Do you want to mention that now?
Yes, I'll mention
Okay.
it. I just want to update the community very quickly. The one-page calendar that we put up on the website, there was slight confusion. Yes, had a mistake. We had as a second snow day, Monday, Memorial Day, which obviously will not be a second snow day. It will be the 22nd. So I just will have it updated on the website and it will be on for board approval today. The changes will be tomorrow. So I apologize for that confusion, but it will be corrected as of tomorrow morning. And that's all I have.
All right. Moving on, we have a special meeting agenda tonight. It has to do with the school calendar. At this time, can I have a resolution to approve the corrected 2025-2026 school district calendar? Can I have a motion to accept resolution? I'm sorry, wait a minute. There one here too. Yeah, can I have a motion to accept resolution 2A?
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Salufo, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lores, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion approved. Item 3, consent agenda. Be hereby resolved that the Board of Education creates and accepts a consent agenda with the following items. Recommendation of superintendent's personnel schedules, item 4A through D. At this time, can I have a motion to accept resolution 3A?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Lores, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Doyle, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion approved. That's item 3A. Okay, items for work discussion session. Let's see. All right, first off, are there any questions regarding the minutes of the February 11th meeting?
No.
Anyone?
Nope.
No? Okay. Are there any questions regarding the agenda items for the next board meeting on Tuesday, March 11th?
No.
Okay. This time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Van Wart for the budget work session presentation.
Thank you, Mr. McCall.
Okay, so this is budget work session number 2. So I'm going to give a quick update on state aid. Not much has happened to update the board on since our last work session at the end of February. But I did want to highlight one thing. This time last year, our second work session was at the end of March. We had known at that time what they call the one house budget adoptions were. So we had an inclination as to where the Assembly and the State Senate was going. We don't have that yet. In the next work session, I should have that information. And potentially we may have a passed budget because it's going to be happening in April. Statutory deadline for the budget to pass is April 1st. Last 2 years, they've been going a lot past that. Hopefully this year they pass the budget on time. We have our final tax levy cap number. I'll talk to that in a second. Our recommendations for the use of reserves for the 25-26 budget. And then Ms. McClellan will come up here and present an overview in the technology department, as well as a recap on all the great things we did in technology using the budget that the voters supported this past year, and then where we're looking to go with next year. I'll cover facilities and transportation, and I'll give an update on salaries and benefits and some other budget areas. I always like to start with our district strategic plan. So when we pass a budget, we align our expenditures with our district strategic goals and align with the opportunity, achievement, connection, and innovation pillars. So really the one update I wanted to give on state aid from our last budget meeting was that what happens is when we get executive budget state aid numbers from the governor's proposal, It's based on projected enrollment numbers that are submitted by the district right around the time when our financial statements for the previous year are finalized. So we anticipate what enrollment will be. In February, on February 15th, the database that's supporting the governor's proposal cuts over to an actual number of student enrollment. And with that cutover, there's some adjustments that usually happen. If you project 100% correct, there would not be a difference in your state aid number. That rarely ever happens. I'm happy to say that this year, our projections that we put into the what's called the ST3 was slightly lower enrollment-wise than what actually ended up in the February 15th database. So our projected number for what is called total aidable foundation pupil units, and that's basically enrollment with a lift on top of it of extraordinary needs for students of ELs, special needs students. If you have a higher percentage of those students, your total aidable foundation pupil units is higher. So we projected 1354 back in September. The actual number is 1361. So that translates into an additional 7 units times our aid per student. So we're expecting to see about a $34,000 increase in our foundation aid number, assuming every item that was in the governor's proposal passes as is. So there could be some adjustments, again, with the foundation aid that we actually receive based on where the legislature goes when they pass the budget. But this is good news. So the unit number being higher, even if there are adjustments, we're likely to see a higher foundation aid number for 25-26 than we were originally projecting. So our final tax cap number for 25-26 is 3.04. The last budget session I had anticipated was going to be about 2.6. It actually came in higher than we were expecting. And the reason for that is that the East Rockaway tax gross rate factor, which is the state's measurement of the ability of the community to support a school budget with the tax base, increased year over year from 1.0108 to 1.0070. Because of that, it increased our tax cap number a little bit. We don't anticipate coming anywhere near the tax cap for 25-26 at this point, but it is a little bit higher. Our tax levy increase last year was about 1.98 to give you some perspective. And again, it's not something that we anticipate we're going to need to go to 3.04 based on our revenue projections for this year, but that is the number for 25-26. I'll just talk a little bit about what we expect to use for capital reserves and we're planning for 25-26. And I've talked about this in previous work sessions, but in 23-24, the voters authorized the use of up $313,000 of capital reserve money for the restoration of the high school cupola. We submitted plans to the state at that point to refurbish the cupola. It took about a year for the plans to be approved. We did a bid immediately after. Bid specs came back and the submissions came back significantly higher than we were anticipating. A lot of that was inflation. Also, just the nature of the project, it's not that common. So our architect did the best that they could to forecast what it was going to cost, but things like restoring a bell, adding vinyl to the side of the cupola, which is currently wood, the cost came back a lot higher than we were expecting. So at that point, we had a decision. Do we do this project and fit under the budget that was authorized by the voters, which would require us to use cheaper materials, so mostly wood, or do we wait? We have SED approval already and seek additional authority from the voters to expend more money on the project, but put in and use materials that are going to withstand the test of time. So we're not constantly doing maintenance to the cupola in the future. So fix it basically and not have to worry about ongoing maintenance costs associated with it. We landed on option 2 and working with our architect, we're recommending another authorization from the community of an amount not to exceed $250,000. The reason why we are recommending $250,000 is because we already have some data on what the bids came back at. It falls kind of in the middle of the 5 bids we received. It should give us the ability to do this project the way we want to do it. Now, if the bids come in lower, we would not use obviously the amount that's authorized by the community. It's called a not to exceed. It just means we can't go higher than that amount. So that would be a separate line item on the ballot for 25-26. Some of the other work that we are planning on doing and recommending to do for 25-26, that's incorporated as part of the overall budget using a line in the budget called transferred capital, is enhancements district-wide for our sidewalks and parking lots. We're looking at some lighting enhancements at the high school. And a major project that's on the top of everybody's mind that we want to work on moving forward is repainting the high school. It's a little outdated. We've been discussing with our building admin, refurbishing the lockers and painting the corridors to be more aligned with the district's colors and branding, et cetera. So the recommendation for 24-26 is $100,000 transfer to capital amount, which is about a $10,000 increase budget to budget. And I'm just going to pause right there, and Ms. McClellan will come up and just talk about technology, and then I will come back and speak about facilities and transportation.
Okay. I'm Bonnie McClellan, Director of Technology, Learning Analytics here. Hi. So technology, I like to say, is the heartbeat of the district, keeping everyone connected. Right? Don't we all agree with that? And I feel that it's best when it brings people together, helping students learn, helping teachers teach, and just keeping everyone connected and keeping families in touch with the school. You know, as I was putting this together, I thought when I was a young girl in school, there was no such thing as a technology department. And now here I am presenting, calling it the heartbeat of the district. So that's a great thing. I divided the department into 4 components: infrastructure and devices, software and applications, support and training, and innovation and future plans. So infrastructure and devices, the hardware that keeps the heart beating in the district, encompasses over our district. We have 1,200 student devices. We have 3 to 12, 3rd grade through 12th grade, 1-to-1 Chromebooks. Although K1 and 2, we don't really call them 1-to-1 because they don't take the devices home. Each child in those grades do have their own device to work on in the classroom. So that gives us about 1,200 student devices. We have 140 instructional workstations that were just refreshed this school year that I will talk about. Instructional workstations are teacher desktops in all of the classrooms. We have 110 Teams phones that were just rolled out in the last month, upgraded our entire phone system with Teams. We have 150 brand new access points that were just updated this school year. And we have interactive boards in each classroom. And that's just the highlights of the hardware we have, among so many other things. Software and applications is really my favorite part of the job. I love working with the software and the instructional programs for teachers. ClassLink is the main platform that we use for teachers and staff for their single sign-on for all of our applications. And it's not only instructional, it's also workflow apps too. Infinite Campus is in there, an app for our email as well. Just some of the highlights this year, we introduced Book Creator, Parent Square, of course, the district communication app, Canva, everyone's favorite design tool, ClassWise, which is a teacher management tool for managing Chromebooks and student usage in the classroom, and new Turnitin for teachers checking student originality for their writing. Support and training, because technology changes so often from I want to say year to year, but really it is day to day and hour to hour. It's so important to have support and training for teachers and staff. So we do that in a couple of different ways. Help tickets is one for the technology department. Last year, 23-24, the technology team resolved 3,000 help tickets. I asked them for that number and they were able to give us that. 3,000 help tickets are very proud of that were resolved in 23-24, and so far 1,900 this year alone. And we're only not only, but we're in March, almost 2,000 already. For professional development, we utilize Model Schools. Working on Model School, it is our OT's consultant that will be in-house coming up soon for a new app that I'm about to talk to you about. A couple of slides. To teacher professional periods and conference days we use for training, for support, and any kind of questions, any new initiatives we have in the district. And BOCES has come on site for various things. The Teams phones for one, when we rolled those out, we had a full BOCES team that came in and spoke to each district, walked into the offices and worked with administrators and staff, clerical, and worked on those phones with them. And just in 24-25, some of the learning apps talked about with Canva that we did Turnitin, Parent Square. I came into each building, and I worked with the teachers. I also visited each of the faculty units and worked with them there. And the phones, we discussed that. Innovation and future planning is another favorite of mine. Like I said, it changes so much. Everyone's talking about AI now. AI is not only the future, it's present right now. We've adopted Magic School, which is a comprehensive platform designed to integrate AI into the daily workflows of educators. And it is the #1 artificial intelligence tool right now for educators and students because it is built primarily for schools, teachers and students. We're having a model schools representative come in for at least 2 days per building to work with the teachers, to show them how to use it, to work with them, answer questions, and support them. We're starting this month with a pilot of Magic School, and then we're excited we're going to roll into a full license next year. Beginning with, I wrote daily workflows for educators because we're going to beginning with how teachers are going to use it first, and then moving on to students after the teachers are comfortable with that. Okay, so pretty much all of that was my budget and program highlights of 24-25. The instructional workstation refresh in each of the classrooms that we did, the Wi-Fi access points, the phones. This was all part of the 24-25 budget that we have accomplished so far. There's new apps I talked about, and okay. And Parent Square, we rolled out this year, and in a couple of weeks, actually, is the new website that's going to be unveiled. So very excited about that. Okay, and here's the proposed budget. So looking by the numbers, many of the numbers from 24 to 25, from 24-25 to 25-26 did remain the same. There's a couple of changes. Let me, you know what, I'm actually going to stand on this side if that's okay. Easier to see. Just a little explanation. We have state-aided hardware and state-aided hardware repair that we're reusing for some new line boards and for some repairs. And that those two lines get back, we get 100% of that back from the state. Another thing I want to explain, the Tech BOCES leases went down a little bit from last year to this year. The Tech BOCES leases are all of our computers. Each year, we refresh 3rd grade and 8th grade with new Chromebooks. So annually, we have those 2 grades get new Chromebooks, and the older ones get pushed down to use for loaners or for the K-1-2 kids. Also in there, we're going to spread out over the next 2 to 3 years to refresh admin workstations. And by admin workstations, that's everyone in an office. Not technically an admin, although some of them are admin. It's anyone that's in an office. The main offices, those are admin workstations. That's how we distinguish between those and instructional. So admin workstations and admin laptops will be phased in over the next 2 to 3 years. And then the last one, the Tech BOCES services, you'll see an increase there. That increase is due to these 2 items right here that came as a result of the recommendation of our internal auditors. The first one is cybersecurity services based upon our district's needs that are powered by Microsoft Sentinel. And we'll also, we're proposing Incident IQ, which has 2 modules that we're looking to get, the help ticket management and asset management. I just want to explain those 2. The cybersecurity services partnership with BOCES is a full setup and maintenance of Microsoft Sentinel. How that differs from Microsoft Defender, where Microsoft Defender protects the individual device, Microsoft Sentinel protects the entire IT infrastructure of the district. With this service, we'll have monitoring of our network from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. by a human. I like saying this, by a human. It's not a computer that's monitoring, a human sitting there. And then if it's overnight, if it's past 5 o'clock, the account gets locked until the next day. If, God forbid, I would say, God forbid, it was malware or phishing or ransom or anything like that, protection. So by locking it down in the evening, nothing will get affected. It's kind of like putting it in like a jail almost until it can be worked on. We'll have initial and periodic assessments of the district network, a review of firewall rules for best practices, full handling of responding to incidents, both proactively and reactively, and review and maintain, that should be maintenance of all email policies. They will be working hand in hand as a main partnership with eTROPOA on these cybersecurity initiatives. And as you know, this is so super important today. And this I'm very excited about. So like I told you about the 3,000 help tickets, and this year so far 1,900, what Incident IQ does, the ticketing system, gives full control to the district. The current system we have, if someone, teacher or support staff, puts in a help ticket, something needs to be fixed, something needs to be looked on, it goes to BOCES, and then it comes back to us. So with this, it's eliminating that middleman. We will be in better control of those tickets, better able to organize them, and better able to address them immediately. And then with the asset management, it's a real-time inventory of all of our purchase assets, such as Chromebooks, the boards, workstations, printers, copiers, the way it was explained to me, anything that has a serial number will be inventoried into this. And again, it was our internal order that suggests we get this to keep everything better organized and better managed. We do have a system now. It's not perfect. This will help it to be close to perfect. And it will give us a more effective tracking of device repairs. Where if a student has, I'm looking at Dr. Katz, I know we talk about this a lot. If a student has a Chromebook that needs to be repaired and needs to get sent out, that student's issued a loaner. With this system, it's easier to track when the student brought it in, when it left, when it's coming back, and who has what. So it's a great system. So we're looking forward to that. Are there any questions on any of that? Thank you. I think this-
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just add to, thank you, Mr. Klein, that's great. From an internal control perspective, there's a framework called NIST. Heard it before, but it's basically the framework that almost every organization builds their control environment around to ensure internal controls are there to either prevent or detect a cybersecurity event. Some of these recommendations that Ms. McClellan has built into our budget, these are things that the NIST framework would if we had somebody come in and look at our district's compliance with NIST framework, these are the types of things that would address some of the standards inside of that. I mean, Sentinel as an example, if you've ever heard of the software CrowdStrike, it's like effectively the Microsoft equivalent of that. And what it does is it has a huge data set of suspicious events. And if it detects on that on any computer in our network, at any point, it basically auto quarantines that computer and stops the spread of any potential malware, et cetera. It's something we don't currently have that is something that would make our district's network a lot more secure in the future. So I appreciate that Ms. McClellan brought that in her budget meetings with me, and we were able to add it to the budget for this year. I think it will significantly improve our security for 25-26. So I'll just talk quickly about facilities and transportation and what's in the budget for this year. Just to give a quick overview, our facilities department, they oversee all of our building operations, our maintenance of physical plant, and handles the groundskeeping for all of our properties. Our staff is 18 FTEs across all of our 3 buildings. That includes custodial, our maintenance crew, as well as our groundskeepers. Our transportation department is a bit of a hybrid. We do some in-district transportation, and then we also contract out for our out-of-district routes. So we have 2 in-district bus drivers, and we have 4 in-district vehicles. Our in-district bus drivers handle a lot of our overflow routes, as well as our special needs students, field trips, and also provides transportation for our after-school athletic programs. Our out-of-district routes, for the most part, are contracted out. We currently use 4 vendors: Independent Coach, Guardian Bus, New Transport, and First Student. We also have a number of BOCES routes where we contract directly with BOCES, who then subsequently subcontracts out with other vendors or provides transportation using their existing staff. Just give you a perspective on what our out-of-district transport looks like. We transport for 24-25 to 13 non-public schools, 2 charter schools. We have 2 BOCES career technical education schools and 7 BOCES special ed schools that we contract out transportation for, as well as we also transport out to Nassau Community College for some of our seniors. This is the facilities budget. So facilities budget is built into 2 sections, the 1620 function code and 1621. This is like your ongoing operation of plant section of the budget. So what you'll see here, the highlights are pretty much everything is flat except for utilities. So we're anticipating that utilities are going to go up by about 11.7%. In 25-26, I'm anticipating that number should start going down as we get the EPC going and the lighting gets replaced and we do some more weatherization of our buildings. But for now, a conservative estimate we have for 25-26 is that increase right there. Another thing to highlight, previously in the facilities budget for operation of plant, we had a $226,000 budget in 24-25 for security services. That's because we used to contract out for our security guards for the external portions of our building, with making those contracted employees our employees. That line item has dropped down to about $20,000, which is there in the event that we need to use a contracted security company to provide substitutes for our security guards that are on staff. Outside of that, everything else is pretty flat year over year. So the overall impact for the facilities budget is $138,000 decrease. This $206,000 decrease, though, is a little bit misleading because you will see an increase in the salary side with the new security guards coming onto our payroll. So reduction in contractual costs, slight increase, not a slight increase, a little bit of an increase on the salaries and benefits, but the salaries and benefits we're paying to these employees as ours is less than the amount that we would have paid if they were contracted. On the maintenance side, so this is the 1621 function area of the budget, very flat year over year. We're only expecting a $10,000 increase. And the only reason why we have a $10,000 increase in this space is because public health law requires us to do every 3 years testing over our water or drinking water for lead. That's coming due for the East Rockaway School District in 2025. The deadline is December 31st. We built into the budget additional costs associated to have Euroscience come in and do that testing for us on our behalf. On the transportation side, so when we projected out the contractual cost for transportation for 25-26, at this point, we know 90% of what the cost is going to be. What we don't know is if there's going to be any new schools that parents in the community are going to be requesting for their kids for transportation. So April 1st is the deadline for our non-public transportation requests to come in. The projections we have here assume that there are no changes in routes for 25-26 from the status quo. For contracts that under New York State Ed pupil transportation regulations, transportation vendors are allowed to continue to extend contracts for up to 10 years at no more than a CPI increase. So for the vet, so every year we send out basically letters to ask our vendors, do you intend to extend with the district with at no cost higher than CPI? And if they say, yes, we generally will extend with them because it's in the benefit of the district financially to do so. If they say no, we have to do a full bid. When you do a full bid, you're running the risk of getting a significant cost increase. So when we built the budget for this year for that line item there, we took the existing routes, we layered on a 10% rate increase for the vendors that have not notified us to date that they are willing to extend. And we raised the other routes by 4% for the ones that we know that they're going to extend, anticipating that CPI is going to come in around 3%, but just giving us that extra 1% allowance in the event that it comes in a little bit higher than we were expecting. And I mentioned this in my previous budget presentation, but the BOCES routes for this year, we've already been told by BOCES that those routes we should expect a 30% increase, and they charge us by student enrollment. So we factored in that 30% increase times the number of students that are currently enrolled at BOCES between our special ed programs as well as our CTE programs. And that all added up to about 1.26 million, which is about a $43,000 reduction year over year, even with the increases. And the reason for that is because we combined quite a few routes this past year. After we settled the budget, we looked to optimize the routes and combine and reduce cost. As we get closer to the budget adoption date, as I get more information from the transportation vendors or from BOCES on what we're expecting, we would adjust this number. As an example, I just got a notification from First Student earlier, probably about a half hour before this meeting, that said they were willing to extend. So we will be adjusting that number a little bit lower because I was factoring in that they were not extending. Budget adoption date, we should have all that information already known. But this gives you a sense of where we're going to end up in terms of transportation. Our athletic transportation contractual code is going up just a little bit because we've added quite a few new sports teams over the course of the last year or so. So the transport for that is adjusted to account for those new teams. Field trip pretty flat, supplies and gasoline, not expecting much of an increase there. And the maintenance we think is pretty good in terms of what the budget is year over year. Real quickly on the salaries and fringe benefits side of the house, I like this pie chart because it really emphasizes that despite all the other stuff that we're talking about, really most of the cost of running a school district is in salaries and benefits because our product is our teachers and our support staff. This is what our budget looks like in terms of our projections today for salaries and fringe benefits year over year. Last year, our employee salaries were about $24.3 million of budget. For 25-26, we're expecting it's going to be about $25.5 million. Now, what's going into that number? This factors in the security guards that we brought in onto our payroll. This includes all the contracts that we've settled or anticipate we're going to settle before the end of the 24-25 school year. This includes any staffing additions that we've had since the budget was last settled in 24-25. So for example, we've added a number of special education aides to meet IEP requirements. We've hired an occupational therapist and brought that in district instead of contracting out for it. And we've increased the number of FTEs on our speech teachers as well. And this also factors a 10% increase in health insurance premiums for the 6 months starting January 1st, 2026. We don't know the night shift premium rate increases until usually November. Just based off of the last year of rate increases, 10% is a conservative number. We were fortunate last year where the rate increase was only about 1% for family plans, 3% for individual plans. But that was just a 1-year event. The previous 3 years before that ranged between 10 and 15%. So we feel comfortable with the 10% projection for 25-26. Even with that 10% increase, we're not looking at a huge budget to budget increase in health insurance. It's only $77,000. And that's because we budgeted for a much bigger increase in 24-25 than actually came to fruition. So that money was already budgeted for. When we do the same projection for 25-26 using the 10% lift, it only results in $77,000 budget to budget impact. So all in, when you factor in the new salaries and then the benefits associated with it, FICA, ERS, TRS, it's about a $1.5 million increase year over year, budget to budget. I mentioned in my previous presentation, the TRS contribution rate is going down for 25-26, which is why you see a much smaller number here than we've grown accustomed to, $21,000 increase. ERS went up quite a bit this year, $95,000 increase is what we're projecting based off our staffing today. All right, and then on the BOCES side of the house, so this is what we're projecting for 25-26 for BOCES expenses. 24-25, we projected 3.3 million. 25-26, we're projecting 3.65 million. So about a $282,000 difference year over year. So that's attributable mostly to our special ed program placements. So we've had an increase in that over the course of the last year. But there's also some of the things that Bonnie was talking about before, some of those cybersecurity services that we're looking to bring into the district this year. We would purchase them through BOCES because we get aid back on it in a future year. We've also been put into the budget this year an increase in the number of days that our on-site security consultant would be on-site. We've added into the budget the expansion of our scholarship program, which is the visitor management system that we currently have at the high school, so that the elementary schools also have that. And then for our recurring services year over year, we projected out a 4% increase in each of those line items that we don't know actually what they're going to charge us next year, because the BOCES prices for next year for a lot of items don't come until May. So we put a conservative estimate of a 4% increase for those line items. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, when we buy things through BOCES, it's in the benefit of the district. Although we pay a 15% BOCES admin fee on top of the cost of the service, we get back about 59.8% on aidable services. That comes back to the district and supports the next year's budget. So if there's a product, if there's a service or a product we can buy through a BOCES contract, it's always in our best interest to do so. So looking ahead to 25-26, and again, this is as of today, we anticipate the tax levy increase for 25-26 should be 1.95%. Now, this, like I said, as mentioned, just for today, this is as of today. There's a couple of things that we still don't know yet, namely the big ticket items of the non-public transportation routes. If there's any new staffing needs that pop up between now and the budget adoption date, we are working right now on converting our bond anticipation note into long-term debt. So I don't anticipate at this point that it's going to have a budget impact, but we are working with our financial advisor to find out the final number and what that's going to cost, and it's going to be added to the books for the district. And then any new or reduced special education placements. So that could either increase or decrease the special education costs as CSEs are completed over the course of the spring. So if we were to go out and propose a 1.95% tax levy increase, this is what it looks like from a dollars perspective. So in 24-25, our budget was $45.28 million For 25-26, we're proposing a $46.9 million budget or $1.6 million increase, 3.72% budget to budget increase. Now, with that 3.72% budget to budget increase, not all of that would be paid for by the taxpayers. With the state aid increasing, it absorbs most of that increase. So the tax levy in 24-25 was 33.4 million. We're proposing for, as of today, again, caveat is we still have some things that we need to flush out before we move forward with adopting this number. $34.05 million tax levy, which is a $651,000 increase or 1.95% increase. If you take that percentage increase and you apply it to the tax roll and the assessed values for Class 1 residential properties in East Rockaway, that equates to about $166 a year in increase in your taxes, or $13.85 a month. The budget adoption date is in the middle of April, so we will refine these numbers as we get more information. But as of today, that's what we're expecting. And that concludes my presentation for work session number 2. On April 8th, we have work session number 3. Mr. Gregory from our athletics department will be presenting the athletics, PE, and health budget. Mr. Murray will cover curriculum and instruction, and Mr. Healy will cover special education. I'll give the final proposals for the expense side and the revenue side of the budget and the proposed tax levy increase at that time. And just a reminder, all work sessions are here in the library at Center Avenue at 6 p.m. So we hope to see you there. I'll pause right there. Anybody on the Board of Ed have a question?
I do.
Answer? Sure.
So the 206 for the security service that came off, because we're not contracting, but we hired them. And there's a same, what are we paying them roughly? So what's the trade?
It depends on how long they worked in the district. So when we brought them on as full-time employees,
Right,
we considered how many years they had been working
right,
for West Tech for the district. So some came in at step 6 or step 7, some came in at step 1.
right.
So
But
it ranges between 20, I don't want to speak out of turn, but somewhere around $21 to $26 an hour.
so in taxpayer terms, we were paying $226,000 a year to contract these guys, and now it's gonna be 150, and we're gonna save
Around there.
75?
Around there, I don't know the exact number off the top of my
And-
head.
and that's all I was looking for. And then,
Because when we make them, when we make them employees, we take on FICA, we take
yeah,
on.
Social Security,
Exactly.
Medicare, I got it.
Now most of them are retired police officers, so they don't pay into the ERS pension system.
Mhm.
So that does save the district some money, but the FICA and if they take benefits,
I was gonna say health benefits, they mostly
most
use them.
don't, but
Okay. And then just on the TRS, you had mentioned that it was lower than anticipated. I thought we would be lower, not higher.
that's because the total salary amount is higher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I
I
have.
have one question. What is a class 1 residential home?
Basically a residential property. So there's 4 classes,
Okay,
class 1, 2, 3, and 4. Class 1 is residential, 2, 3,
Okay.
and 4 is utilities, commercial.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions?
But thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we're going to make a motion to adjourn today's Board of Education special meeting, work session, and budget work session, and enter into executive session to discuss contract negotiations. Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting at 6:46 PM?
Motion?
Motion by Mrs. Doyle, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Salufo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion approved. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.